In the show, I spoke with epidemiologist in Ottawa, Dr. Raywat Deonandan. He's with the University of Ottawa, and I asked him, what can the restrictions do if people aren't listening to them?
Yeah, so why do we have these restrictions in the first place? They're not magical. Nothing about taking kids out of school specifically makes the disease go away. Nothing about taking you out of your workplace makes the disease go away. What these are disincentives and incentives for human behavior. So these policy levers have to be calibrated and well thought out so they don't do the opposite. Yeah, we send people home. Okay, but what do they do at home? That's the bigger question. We have this increase in test positivity rate amongst children, for example, and that's probably not the result of schools being open because schools being closed for most of the holidays. It's the result of people socializing over the holidays, despite the fact that they're told not to, and despite the fact that we've had an economic restriction on for at least a week or so. So all this ultimately comes down to human behavior, and the policy levers that we enact are meant to guide human behavior in a certain way. But it can give the opposite reaction at any given time if we don't think this out well. This is why I'm hesitant around curfews. I'm not sure what the effect on human behavior will be.
Without curfews, what can be done? What do you think we need to do?
Well, there's an argument for doubling down on enforcement, and it pains me to say that because that just plays into the hands of people who claim this is all an authoritarian ploy. But it's useless if you have policies and bylaws if they're not being enforced. Of course, we have to increase education. We keep saying that, but the message doesn't get through. So what kind of education? Maybe literally showing suffering on TV, taking the cameras into hospitals, showing this could be the future of your loved one being attached to a ventilator and dying lonely unless you perform appropriately. And then there is upping the fines and actually enacting the fines, actually showing that that if you violate these public health guidances, there will be repercussions.
What about schools? Should they be shut down for longer?
I think so. I'm on that side of the fence. And I know that the data can be conflicting depending upon how you want to look at it, but I think now that's an option that really has to be strongly considered, given the very dire predicament that we're in and the fact that the test positivity rate amongst children is so high. That strongly suggests that children are transmitting it, if not to each other, then certainly potentially to their parents and therefore to older people. So something is driving this, and especially if we're considering the possibility that the new UK variant might be among us, all opportunities for additional transmission must be diminished.
How much longer do you think they need to be shut?
Oh, I have no idea. But until the reproduction number comes down, until those positivity rates come down again, it might be another month. It might even be longer. Now, the other tool we have is to accelerate the vaccine distribution. That, to me, should be the single biggest civilizational priority of the Northern Hemisphere, is manufacture more of these things and get them into more arms. It should be a military-wide process to get that done, like they sort of do in Israel. So I'm not sure why that's not getting more of a focus.
What about construction? What about warehouses?
Well, I mean, it comes down to how many people are there, how are they working, and what are their activities before and after going to work. Again, shutting things down are just incentives and disincentives for human behavior. If there are other ways to disincentivize, then we should explore those. For example, maybe open all the doors and windows in these warehouses, maybe do rapid testing of everybody coming in. And that's the other part of this. We haven't fully explored the potential for rapid testing to make much of this controllable. I think that's an opportunity for us to invest some of this lost money in getting us an additional tool that we can deploy at scale. And I don't know why we haven't done that.
Dr. Barbara Yaffe moments ago just said they're looking at masking for younger children in schools. What do you think about that?
I don't know why that's not been done before. In Asia, masking for young kids is done as a matter of routine. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, some kids obviously are going to have issues, and for those kids we make exceptions. But we can make it into an educational opportunity, as they have done in other countries. It's better that than more draconian interventions, so let's give it a shot.
Earlier today, my colleague Leslie Roberts spoke with a local ICU physician, Dr. Kwadwo Kermantang. I want to play a clip of him here. He says he's optimistic that our numbers will begin to go down soon.
The results of what we're seeing now, at least locally, is related to holiday socialization. So certainly people gathering over the holidays is what we're seeing in hospital, in the ICU right now. One thing I think that would be more on the optimistic side is those gatherings have been done, and now it's been very clear from our public health measures and the government that social gatherings are prohibited. And so hopefully, I'm hoping some of that will plateau in terms of how busy we get within the hospitalizations and our numbers.
So he has some optimism here. Do you share in that optimism? Do you think that this is going to go down soon?
There's always room for optimism, and Kwadwo is an optimistic guy, and I celebrate that in him. But once the numbers are high, as they are now, then they are spreading. That's the nature of exponential growth. It's like once you've made an investment, that stock is going to continue to rise in value. So the question isn't, will it come down on its own because the socialization is gone? The question is, will it come down because we have restricted additional movement to force it down? That's the big question. So will it come down? It depends entirely on people's responses to the new restrictions. Will they comply? Will they have these rave parties at home when they should be keeping their distances? I don't know. And I feel a little exacerbated because we've been having the same conversation for many months now. And it seems the compliance levels are poor, and the stakes just got higher because of the new variant and because we are in the most dangerous part of the pandemic so far, and people don't seem to realize that. I like to be optimistic, and I have faith in people to do the right thing at the end of the day. But the day is long, and the sooner we do the right thing, the better.
Dr. Vera Etches said Ottawa is in the red, but is approaching the gray zone territory. What's your sense of that? Do you think we end up in the gray zone, which is the highest tier of the COVID-19 structure in the regulations?
You and I talked about this back in early December, and I said
we did
to be in the red sooner than later. And I think she's right. I think we're going to be gray. And part of that has nothing to do with what we've done. That's the nature of the epidemic right now raging across the Northern Hemisphere. It's picking up steam, and it's taking no prisoners. A famous epidemiologist, Larry Brilliant, said recently on a British podcast that we will see normality this year, but we're going to have to walk through the gates of hell before then. And this is what he's talking about. These next couple of months are going to be very hard for everybody because that is the nature of the epidemic right now. We do what we can to force it down. And had we done more earlier, get it closer to COVID zero, we'd be in a more comfortable spot. And of course, we didn't do that. So instead, we do what we can. And unfortunately, I share Dr. Etches' pessimism at this point. I think we're going to touch gray before we come down.
Dr. Raywat Deonandan, epidemiologist at the University of Ottawa.